All right, you're back.
Yep. Hi, David. Thanks
Hi.
for joining. We are live on Twitch.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Yep. Hello, friends. If you're watching us on Twitch, we are back with Engineering Leadership Series Meetup. And today we have David with us. David, how about you introduce yourself?
Sure, happy to do so. I'm David Lambert. I've been in software for quite a number of years now. My career has really spanned sort of hands-on technical roles and managerial roles. I love both aspects of software and software leadership. Yeah, currently I'm actually transitioning again. I'm at an engineering manager at Hagerty, and just starting to transition into a role in an enterprise architecture there. Yeah, once again, really happy to be in a role that lets me kind of mix the people aspects of software and the technical aspects of software.
Cool. So, where is Hagerty based out of? Is it based out of Dublin or is it located in Denver?
Yeah, great question. So Hagerty kind of originated in Traverse City, Michigan. That's home base for them, and that was sort of their only home for a number of years. As they started growing, we did open a call center office in Golden, Colorado. And just recently, we did open up an office in Dublin. So we're down in the Bridge Park area. Yeah, if you've been to that part of Columbus, there's a lot of growth that's been going on down there, and we're pretty excited to have a physical presence here in Central Ohio. That office is going to be kind of a mixed use location for us. So, some call center and some claims and some IT folks as well. Sort of an interesting timing for having that office open up for us because, that happened really proximate to the beginning of the whole COVID episode for us. So we went through really all of the last year with the office, still kind of transitioning from being under construction to being in reconstruction as they reconfigured some of the floor plans and so forth for the new sort of hybrid work from home / work in the office model that we're expecting going forward.
Great. Uh, so, what is leadership according to you, and how do you see leadership at Hagerty?
Yeah, great question. I mean, leadership is so multifaceted, I think. And you can look at it in in formal ways, right? Leadership can take on that managerial HR aspect. Leadership frequently though is really about kind of moving hearts and minds, right? So it's getting people aligned with where your organization is going and what you're trying to accomplish on projects, what you're trying to accomplish within teams. And it's really getting people to all roll together and move together as a team.
Great. So, today's topic is about something I have first time I'm hearing it from you when you told that you want to speak about two pizza team, right? And followed when we spoke. Following that, I saw in LinkedIn recently there was a LinkedIn news article telling about Two Pizza Team and Jeff Bezos and all those stuff. So why don't you give us an overview about what is Two Pizza Team and what's all about it?
Sure, absolutely. So that two pizza team is sort of the agile stuff of lore, I guess, coming from Amazon back around 2012, give or take, when Jeff Bezos sort of introduced the idea that everything at Amazon was going to be API first, and really making sure that that the teams and the organizations there were grouped into small teams, and so Bezos used the two pizza analogy as the size of team that you can feed with a couple of pizzas. So you're really looking at 6 to 8 people, right, for an optimal two pizza team. When you get up to 10, 12 people, you're starting to run out of pizza at that point. And so I had, I'd heard about, that Amazon story and the origin of the pizza, the two pizza team, and the explanation of what the two pizza team was. But I was never super clear on sort of the why, right? Where does it come from? Why does it work? And why that size? And I kind of found myself re-energized or re-interested in that concept um, within the last year. I picked up a book called Team Topologies that that talks about kind of the relationship between organizational architecture and people, right, and their sort of cognitive abilities and some of the physiological things that drive how people work together, and sort of ties that back to the software architecture in in your actual enterprise, right, and sort of the relationships between that people organization and the software architecture and the stuff that makes us kind of tick as people, and how all that stuff is related. So I was sort of re-energized by virtue of that book to re-examine and re-understand what's up with the two pizza teams.
Yeah, that's a really an interesting perspective, David. So you should have your teams small in such a way that it should be suffice with two pizzas. So that's what I'm understanding currently.
Yeah, and so that's a super easy mental model, I guess, to kind of get your head wrapped around.
Right.
The really tricky part of that is finding, and this varies by company, obviously, but as you get into larger organizations, it can become really challenging to figure out a scope of work that can be wholly owned by one of those two pizza teams, right? So you can imagine in some of your small startup organizations, smaller companies and so forth, it's not too difficult to imagine the whole enterprise essentially fitting into one of these two pizza teams. But when you get to an organization that's operating at scale, right, and we've got a number of really large organizations here in Central Ohio. We've got Nationwide, we've got Chase, we've got you name it, right? We've got some really sizable organizations, and trying to find a part of the world that one of these two pizza teams can own is a tremendous challenge. And that's where, I kind of found this stuff getting really, really interesting for me. The whole point of the Team Topologies book, and I really, really recommend, yeah, if you have a chance to pick this up, it's a fantastic read. It's not, it's not the kind of technical material that a lot of times we're drawn to, but it's, really, really fascinating how the way we communicate with one another is reflected into the software architecture that we build.
Right. So when you started using this methodology in your company, so what were some learnings for your team, or did you find it different from regular SDLC methodologies which are over there, like agile teams or scrum teams and all those stuff? So what are some learnings which you had?
hmm Yeah, great question. So I think, all of these topics are kind of symbiotic, right? So this is not necessarily something that replaces Scrum or replaces Safe or replaces any of the other methodologies that you're using. It's really, ancillary material, additional material, right? I mean, it sort of explains, um, um, again, sort of the relationship between the people organization and the software organization. And one of the things that we're sort of working through, as part of an ongoing digital transformation, is, sort of, digesting and decomposing some large bits of software infrastructure into smaller bits of software infrastructure that some of these smaller teams can work on. So yeah, not an uncommon situation, I think, to have, really large bits of enterprise software. You see this frequently in large organizations. You see it, it'll manifest in large releases, right? So companies where you've got, a scheduled quarterly release, monthly release, even weekly release. When big parts of the company all kind of organize together, to cooperate with a large release. You've got a big application there essentially, and no matter no matter how many two pizza teams you've identified there is still, a lot of communication and a lot of coordination that goes into keeping all of those teams lined up and cooperating effectively and coordinating effectively, organizing testing, organizing, production support, organizing, performance measurement and remediation, organizing, all of those activities that we take on across, a wide IT team. Um, when everyone has to communicate and coordinate in lockstep across that whole, breadth of software, um, it takes up, a lot of attention span. It takes up a lot of our, sort of cognitive load, right? So when we've got teams that are spending a lot of time worrying about what other teams are doing,
Right.
right? When you got teams that are trying to manage dependencies across lots of other teams, when you've got teams that are, exercising scrum of scrums types of activities,
Right.
um, all of those communication and coordination, types of activities take up, parts of our brain that we are not using then to create new software in our little two pizza teams.
So so usually these teams are they grouped based on skills, or you will form a team with people with wide variety of skills. So
Right.
how do you form the team when you are using two pizza team as a methodology?
Yeah, another great question there. I think ideally, if you can find a scope for these teams where you've got business and technical skills and DevOps skills, really the whole gamut of skills that are necessary to understand problems, ideate the problems, build the software, deploy the software, support the software, evaluate the software, right? So everything from product management through development, through DevOps, through support. So because you've got those that wide range of skill sets, it's really helpful for as many of the people on the team as possible to have what I've heard called a T-shaped skill set, right? So a very wide skill set with some specific areas of really deep knowledge. So, you can imagine, you might have someone who's really outstanding at front end development. But it is also super helpful for that person to have enough understanding of the DevOps process to be able to, troubleshoot and develop, let's say, your CI/CD pipeline. And so, as you combine people on this team, if you've got depth in all of the areas that you need depth and some breadth among the team members, you wind up with a team that's able to kind of flex capacity a little bit, right? You want to be able to have people that can go to where the gap is, go to where the need is, fill the need. Even if it's not necessarily an area that they are outstandingly proficient at. Having enough proficiency to be able to move the ball forward a little bit is super helpful. And it's also, I think, really beneficial with that T-shaped skill set to have people who can understand and empathize with the other people on the team, right? So if you understand what your what your testers are going through, if you understand what your product manager is trying to accomplish, and so forth, each of the team members has an ability to really make a hands-on contribution to the team, and it's much easier to have the team kind of function as one.
Sure. This is good to know about like how the teams will be functioning as part of two pizza team. Uh, so let's say traditionally in regular software development teams, uh, we have like there will be an architecture group which focuses mainly on architecture skills, right? They will be designing. Uh, they will design and decide what softwares to use, or they come up with all the specifications. The architecture team comes with the specification, and we have the development team which basically forms takes the guidance from the architecture team, right? So so do you see that as part of two pizza team, uh, all all of them will be functioning as a single team, or they will be still operating as silos, like architecture team separately and QA team separately? So how it works?
Yeah, good question. So the Team Topologies book actually does go into some of those issues in some detail, and I guess the bottom line is you're never going to completely get away from some of those supporting groups. And so you will have those represented in your complete IT organization. You will have some areas where you've got really deep specialization and understanding of DevOps and security and infrastructure and networking and things along those lines. Some of those specializations still exist. The two pizza development teams are always going to be informed by and assisted by and supported by some of those ancillary teams. But as much as you can, as much as you can make the individual product teams self-sufficient and probably more importantly, at least semi-independent, right? It lets the product teams move at the pace that they're able to accomplish individually, right? So I think the real key is not to necessarily eliminate some of those supporting groups, but to let them be supporting groups rather than constraining groups.
Right, right. So in a Scrum team, we usually have a Scrum goal, right? Or we do something like a 2 week sprint. It will have a goal, or any other method. If you are taking agile methodology, also there will be some target state like we at the end of the iteration we want to release some of these features. So they form the goal, right? So as part of two pizza team, is there something any specific objective that will be defined, or the team will coordinate on its own? So how it works?
Yeah, I don't see that as substantially different from some of your more typical Scrum organizations. The goals of the Scrum team are still ultimately owned by the Scrum team. I think if anything, what this organization does, if it's executed properly, is manage the impact of some of the dependencies across teams, right? So if you have if you have teams that are very highly interdependent on one another, and especially teams that are kind of participating together in one of these large releases, the coordination across those teams, number one, becomes extremely important, right? Your scrum of scrums type of activities become crucially important to keep your release on track, right?
Right.
And then you also have a fairly high danger of one team impacting the success of lots of other teams, because if you've got one team working on a critical release goal and it's going to stop the rest of the teams from moving forward, you can have a whole release that's kind of sidelined that way.
Right.
And so this is where it's super interesting to me how that team organization, number one, is reflected in software architecture, right? And so it informs your software architecture, and it's also limited by your software architecture, right? So if your architecture does not support these individual teams being able to move independently, you can create two pizza teams all day long, and you're not going to achieve um, the independence across teams the
Correct.
way you'd like.
So so what I understand is basically if you're going to use two pizza teams, uh, the team basically has to have the flexibility to perform independently. So if they are not going to perform independent, then it will not have much impact, or they will not be able to get the fruits of two pizza team. So
Yeah, I think it's sort of an amplification effect, maybe.
okay,
Right. So your two pizza team um has been a pretty good idea for a long time. And it's also really interesting, as you look across other types of organizations, you'll see teams of this size show up pretty commonly, even if it's not called a two pizza team. There's a book that was really popular probably a couple of years ago. General Stanley McChrystal's Team of Teams. And if you read that book, it's sort of rooted in some of the squad type organizations that you see in military organizations.
right,
Um, Very, very different goal, obviously. But it's very interesting to see that you wind up with a high functioning team that just happens to be about the same size as one of these two pizza teams. And again, one of the things that was very interesting reading Team Topologies was to have, the book kind of starts out by introducing and referencing some research material that drove the creation of the book. And one of those inputs was some psychological studies that kind of talk about how people's brains work, and how we are able to establish and maintain relationships with other people. And there are there are some sort of concentric rings, I guess, of types of relationships we're able to have with other people, and the level of performance and the level of trust across those different layers, right? So your immediate team, and we'll all be able to kind of reflect on teams that we've been part of that have been really, really rewarding, really close knit. You reach a level with a team where everyone kind of knows what everyone else is doing and what they're thinking and how they work, and you get a really, really tight family like atmosphere with that close group of teammates when this stuff is really clicking, right?
right, cool,
And that's kind of that two pizza team is limited to that size because that's the number of people that most human brains are able to establish that kind of relationship with.
got it. Yeah. So we are almost at the end of the segment. So if you are if you want to suggest aspiring leaders or upcoming leaders, right? What is some advice that you want to give to them?
Um, oh boy, that's boy, you saved the tough one for the last, I guess. Um, it's it's really, really amazing to me, as I've built a career in software, to understand how much the way we think impacts the way we work. And we, as software professionals, I think a lot of us got into this profession and this line of work because um, we're drawn to the deterministic um, nature of software, and the ability for us to create a bit of software, test the software, understand that it's going to behave the same way every time. I don't know about you or any of our listeners, but that was a big reason of what got me into software in the first place. Um, as we start scaling organizations and building software for people, though, um, things get really interesting. Things get really complicated. Things become much more subjective, right? Things become much more relative and contextual, based on who we're talking to, who's using the software, right? Who's cooperating with whom to build this stuff. Um, and most of our really difficult software problems really wind up being people problems.
Right. So I was actually reading a book recently where it was suggested that if you're able to master people skills, then you can automatically master your product skills. So people skills and technology skills both will come a long way together to help us succeed. So that's really a good advice, is to work with people good and improve people skills as a main thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other point that I would add to that is that in the same way that we have to sort of continually refresh and reinvent our technical skills, all of these soft skills, you know, you will never be done learning about these things. It's a real part of your day-to-day life, and it's a real part of working to improve every day. All of that stuff applies to all of these soft skills, in addition to all of the technical skills that we we're sort of used to going back and learning all of the technical stuff, as we see new software come out, new releases, new frameworks, you name it. um, there are some great new ideas in getting people organized and aligned, and kind of pulling together and some of that stuff. And the more you can expose yourself to leaders thinking about these topics, I think the more chances you've got um, to reinterpret some of those ideas in ways that apply to your current situation and your current organization.
Great. So now we come to the last question. So if you want to suggest any books or any podcast or any blog, what are something that you want to suggest to our viewers today, so that they can get some good insights about leadership and other aspects?
Yeah, great segue. As I've already been sort of espousing team topologies, so I think that one goes without saying. I worked in Team of Teams. That's another great leadership book. Podcasts. I have to admit, I've got way more podcasts in my queue than I can ever hope to actually keep caught up on. But I think one of my favorite leadership podcasts is the Learning Leader. Ryan Hawk hosts this series, and he's had some conversations with really amazing leaders. Um, not definitely not a software podcast, right? So Ryan speaks with leaders ranging from sports leaders to I think in fact very recently he interviewed our CEO McKeel Hagerty. Confession, I haven't listened to that episode yet, so I assume it's great. But the podcast in general is really solid. We've got a couple of other kind of locally hosted podcasts on my list. There's a podcast about product management hosted by Columbus's AWH. The podcast is called Beyond the Roadmap. Fantastic introduction to what product management is and why it's important for an organization. And yeah, that concept is one that that really feeds this two pizza team and this sort of product mindset. And you know, it's also you know, an area that as technologists we probably haven't been especially well trained in some of this stuff. But it's super helpful to be able to kind of understand um, that mindset, right?
Right.
Last podcast I'll toss out another kind of semi-local one. Jack Marr here in the Columbus area has a great podcast on digital transformation. Again, really focused on some of the people aspects of um, getting ourselves to think about problems a little bit differently.
Great. I think I'm going to listen to all these podcasts that you have suggested today to our viewers. So, do you have any last final piece of uh, things that you want to tell today? Uh,
Sure, I'll toss one more in for good measure, right? So we you know we talked a little bit about how challenging it can be to try to get your architecture to line up with the you know sort of regions of independence that let these two pizza teams move fluidly with respect to one another, right?
right.
So even though you know that all by itself is plenty challenging enough, a lot of organizations aren't static, right? They are growing and evolving. And you know, and that's the reason we're writing software in the first place, right? We are not building an application that has a beginning and a finish and we're done.
Right.
We're supporting organizations that are growing and thriving, you know, adding people, adding products, you know, acquiring companies, you name it, right?
Correct.
And so, yeah, I think one of the really intriguing possibilities of trying to align people architecture and software architecture is that if we're really good at this, and I, you know, again, I will be the first to admit I'm not this good, but if we can start to understand the places where these architectures are going to be growing and are going to evolve and may in the future start to split, right? So if you have a team that's supporting you know a wide range of experiences and capabilities, but you can envision at some point you know you're going to have you know a web application that becomes a web application and a mobile application, let's say, right?
Right.
You can envision that single team at some point maybe becoming 2 teams. Maybe it even becomes 3 teams, right? If you've got an API that supports your web application and your mobile application, you can take that single 2 pizza team and split it 2 ways, split it 3 ways, right? If you can start to imagine those things coming, you can start to plan not only the roadmap for the technology, but you can also start to plan the roadmap for the people. And the promise or the benefit, I guess, in being able to predict that is that you've got a chance to engage your teams in understanding not only where the software is going, but where the people organization is going. You will find there are organizations that have a real trauma or nervousness around the idea of organizational reorgs, right? And this is a way for you to kind of engage the team in understanding why the organization is what it is, and where you think the organization might be going.
Yep.
Right.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, David. Thanks for spending time with us today and going over everything about Two Pizza Team and other team topology stuff, like how you can structure your teams. Sorry, there is more sunlight on you. I hope it's not disturbing
There
you.
we go. I'll move a little bit. Yeah, the sun's setting in the west here.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it was a pleasure speaking with you. I had a lot of fun. It's a topic that's of great interest to me, and certainly not one that I ever expect to fully master, because it's really kind of an evolving thing and ever changing and so forth. But lots of fun to try to learn these topics.
Yeah, it's all about learning and sharing. That's what we are trying to do with these meetups. So thanks for giving all your insights and sharing your insights with us today. Uh, we will be back next month with another set of leader and another set of topics. Uh, Thank you for speaking today, David. And friends, you can always reach out to David on LinkedIn, right? So
Yep.
if there are any other follow-up questions, David will be happy to answer on LinkedIn. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.